What would you do if the person you hired to clean your mansion turned out to be a hidden genius? Not with spreadsheets or stocks, but with something far more rare. A gift so quietly powerful, it could touch your soul. Before we dive into this story, where in the world are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, we love hearing from you. The mansion was silent that morning. Like always. A cold, echoing monument to wealth and loneliness. And then she walked in. Quiet. Careful. Invisible. Another maid, or so they thought. No resume that screamed brilliance. No fancy name. Just a young woman with tired eyes and fingers used to scrubbing marble floors. She moved through the house like a ghost. Dusting corners, polishing silver. Never asking questions. Never meeting anyone's gaze. He, the man who owned it all, didn't notice her at first. Why would he? She blended in like wallpaper. Until that day. It started with a sound. Faint. Unexpected. Music. He was passing the east wing when he heard it. A melody, soft as breath, threading its way through the air. Delicate. Haunting. Too beautiful to be a recording. Curious, he followed it. There, through a slightly open door, he saw her. Not in uniform. Not with a mop. But at the old grand piano, lost in a world of her own. Her fingers glided over the keys like she was born there. Her eyes closed. Her soul wide open. She didn't know he was watching. And in that moment, she wasn't a maid. She was a masterpiece. And for the first time in years, he felt something real. She came as a maid, but left as the mistress of his heart. She was the kind of girl most people passed by on the street. Not because she wasn't beautiful, but because she had mastered the art of being invisible. Her name was Elena. 24. Raised in a neighborhood where dreams were a luxury, and survival was the only thing on the daily to-do list. She had once wanted more. More than peeling wallpaper and late rent notices. More than holding her breath every time the landlord knocked. More than the silence that came after her mother got sick. And never got better. Elena had a gift. A secret one. One she had nurtured in the quietest corners of her world. After long shifts, after grief, after hope started slipping through her fingers. Music. Painting. Stories spilled onto canvas or keys when no one was looking. Not for applause, but because it was the only thing that made her feel alive. But dreams don't pay hospital bills. So Elena tucked hers away. Folded them neatly and shoved them behind the cleaning supplies. She found work through an agency. Cleaning houses she could never afford. Living quietly in shadows of chandeliers and glass walls. And then came the listing. Private mansion. Must be discreet. Immediate hire. High pay. No questions asked. She said yes before thinking twice. Because when life doesn't give you options, you take what you can get. When she arrived at the estate, it didn't feel real. The gates alone were taller than any building in her old neighborhood. Everything inside gleamed, glass, marble, stone. But no warmth. No welcome. They told her not to speak unless spoken to. To use the back corridors. To be invisible. And she was. Day after day, Elena moved through the mansion like air. She wiped away dust from picture frames of strangers. Vacuumed silence off hand-woven rugs. Polished doorknobs no one touched. No one ever looked her in the eye. And truth be told, she was fine with that. Because while they ignored her, they also didn't notice the room she found. The one with the broken piano. The one no one had entered in years. Where the light hit just right, and the dust didn't care who you were. It became her little escape. Just 10 minutes here and there, after hours. When the world was quiet enough to feel again. And in those moments, Elena didn't feel poor. Or small. Or invisible. She felt like the girl she used to dream of being. But little did she know, Someone else had started dreaming about her, too. They called him Dominic Blackwood. 41 years old. Worth over $2 billion. Owner of half the skyline. And the kind of man who turned heads when he walked into a room. Not because of charm, but because of power. But power isn't warmth. And money doesn't always make noise. His mansion was a fortress. A palace carved out of silence. 18 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, 6 living rooms. But not a single one that ever felt like home. Dominic didn't do small talk. He didn't do birthdays. He didn't do love songs or candlelit dinners or laughter that echoed through the halls. He did business. He did deals. He did control. And the truth? That control was the only thing holding him together. Because once, a long time ago, Dominic Blackwood believed in something softer. But life, it took that from him. A mother who left. A father who replaced hugs with discipline. A fiancé who promised forever. Until forever became a courtroom and a headline. So, Dominic did what many men do when their heart breaks in places no one sees. He built walls. Real ones. Emotional ones. And then stacked money on top of them, until no one could reach him. He hired staff who didn't speak unless spoken to. He surrounded himself with glass and gold, but never people. Never connection. Because people leave. People lie. People look at your heart like it's a vault and wonder how to break in. And so, when Elena walked into his mansion, he didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Didn't even notice. She was just another uniform. Another shadow passing through his carefully controlled world. But fate. Fate doesn't ask for permission. And neither does love. It started with a sound. Not a crash. Not a shout. Just something soft. So soft it almost didn't exist. A single note. Pressed gently from an old piano. Long forgotten, buried in dust, tucked away in a room no one ever entered. But that one note. It reached him. Dominic was walking the hall like he always did. Phone in one hand, silence in the other. Deadlines. Numbers. Emails. The world he knew best. And then he stopped. He didn't know why, at first. But something pulled at him. A second note. Then another. Not perfect, but full of soul. Like someone was playing from memory, not of sheet music, but of pain. He turned. Followed the sound. And there, through the cracked door of a dim, dust-covered room, he saw her. Elena. Not scrubbing the floor. Not carrying linens. But sitting at the piano like it was part of her. Like it had been waiting for her. Her fingers moved slowly. Not with technique. But with feeling. Each note was a whisper. Each pause, a breath. She didn't know he was watching. Didn't know that the man who never cared was holding his breath. And he couldn't move. Because in that moment, she wasn't the maid. She wasn't the help. She was an artist. A woman with a hidden world inside her. One he hadn't seen in years. Maybe ever. Something stirred in him. Something he thought had died. Curiosity. Wonder. The beginning of a question he didn't yet know how to ask. Who was she? And why? Why did it suddenly feel like his house wasn't the only thing waking up after that day? Something changed. Not for her. She kept scrubbing floors. Dusting vases. Slipping silently from room to room like she always had. But for him? He started noticing things. The way she hummed under her breath when she thought no one was listening. The way her fingers lingered on the edge of the piano room door. Even when she didn't go in. The way her eyes drifted toward the art on his walls, not with envy, but with understanding. She saw beauty in things he hadn't looked at in years. And Dominic. Dominic didn't know what to do with that. He wasn't used to curiosity. He wasn't used to feeling anything beyond schedules and bottom lines. But suddenly, he found himself taking detours. Passing by the east hallway. The one she always started in first. Asking his assistant pointless questions at times he knew Elena would be in earshot. He told himself it was nothing. Just professional awareness. But deep down, he knew better. There was something about her. Something quiet. But magnetic. She didn't flirt. Didn't seek attention. In fact, she avoided it. And maybe that's what made her unforgettable. One afternoon, he lingered longer than usual near the piano room. She was inside, cleaning, he assumed. Until he heard it again. Music. But this time, there were words. She was singing. Low. Gentle. Barely above a whisper. The kind of voice that doesn't perform. It confesses. And he just stood there. Listening. Feeling. Something about her voice made the walls of the mansion feel smaller. Softer. Like warmth had finally found a way in. He didn't speak to her. Not yet. He didn't want to break it. Whatever this fragile thing was. This thread between them, invisible but pulling tighter with every day. And Elena? She had no idea he was watching. No idea that the man who once walked past her like she didn't exist was now building entire days around the chance of crossing her path. He didn't know her story. Not yet. But he wanted to. And that want scared him more than he cared to admit. It happened by accident. Or maybe it was never an accident at all. Elena thought the house was empty. It usually was. Late afternoon light spilled through the tall windows, and the silence wrapped around her like a blanket. She found herself, again, in the forgotten room with the broken piano. The keys were still chipped. Still out of tune. But that never mattered to her. Music wasn't about perfection. Not for someone like Elena. It was about feeling. Letting everything trapped inside have a voice. Even just for a moment. So she played. Eyes closed. Head bowed. Heart open. What she didn't know was that she wasn't alone. Dominic had come home early. No meetings. No staff. Just a feeling he couldn't explain. He heard the music first. Then her voice. This time, she wasn't whispering. She was singing. Not loud. But free. Lyrics about longing. About being seen. About hiding in plain sight. And something inside him cracked. He pushed the door open slowly. Didn't say a word. Elena didn't hear him. Not at first. But when she finally looked up, she froze. Her hands pulled back from the keys. Her eyes wide, lips parted. Like she'd been caught stealing something that didn't belong to her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know anyone was." "You wrote that?" His voice was soft. More surprised than stern. She nodded, slowly. Still standing. Still ready to run. Dominic stepped forward, unsure of what he was doing. Only knowing he couldn't let this moment disappear. "It's beautiful," he said. Quiet. Honest. Like it cost him something to admit. She looked down, unsure how to take a compliment from a man who usually didn't notice her existence. I only play when no one's around," she said. "As a child, it was the only thing that made sense to me." He studied her. Not the uniform. Not the role. Her. "You don't belong in the background," he said. "You never did." It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't a line. It was a truth he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. And for the first time, Elena felt seen. Not watched. Not tolerated. Seen. She didn't smile. Not yet. But something softened between them. A silence that didn't feel cold. It felt understood. Two lonely hearts. Both pretending they had everything under control. Finally letting their guard down. And in that quiet space, where music filled the air and no one had to pretend, something new was born. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of it. The kind that doesn't arrive with fireworks, but with a whisper that says, "I see you." Of course, the world noticed. It always does. Eventually. At first, it was small. Barely more than a whisper. A glance held too long. A smile that lingered. The way Dominic started showing up in places he never used to. The garden. The east hallway. The piano room. And Elena? She tried to act like nothing had changed. Tried to pretend that her heartbeat didn't skip every time she heard his footsteps. Or that her world wasn't quietly rearranging itself around his presence. But in a house that ran on silence, whispers were loud. And someone was always watching. It was Camilla, the estate manager. Sharp-eyed, loyal to the rules. And suspicious of anything that didn't fit inside the lines. To her, Elena was a threat. A stain on the silver. She didn't like the way Dominic looked at her. Didn't like that someone so ordinary had found her way into places reserved for privilege. And so, one afternoon, she followed Elena. Quietly. Carefully. And she saw it. Not just Elena playing the piano, but Dominic leaning against the doorframe, smiling like he hadn't in years. That was enough. Within hours, Elena was called into the staff office. No smile. No warmth. Just a folded uniform on the desk. And a cold sentence. Your employment is no longer required. She didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't ask why. Because deep down, she already knew. She gathered her things. Left the way she came. Quiet. Invisible. Unnoticed. Or so she thought. Dominic didn't find out until the next day. An empty room. A piano untouched. A hallway that felt colder. When he asked where she was, Camilla answered without blinking. She crossed a line. But Dominic didn't speak. Not at first. He just stood there. Silent. Staring at the keys Elena once played like they were part of her soul. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he didn't know how to name. Loss. Not of an employee. Not of a passing curiosity. But of something far more rare. Someone who had seen him. Someone who had made his house feel like it might, just maybe, become a home. And now, she was gone. Dominic wasn't a man who chased things. He didn't run after deals. He didn't run after people. And he definitely didn't run after feelings. But something about her absence was louder than any presence he'd ever known. The mansion felt wrong. Off balance. As if someone had stolen the only light left in the place. The piano room was quiet. The garden untouched. And his days, so carefully structured, felt hollow. He kept thinking of her laugh. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The way her music filled the room. And made him forget who he was supposed to be. He could have let her go. Could have moved on, like he always did. But this time, he didn't want to. So he did something no one expected. He asked his assistant for the name of the agency. Tracked her down himself. And when that didn't work, he asked someone who owed him a favor. Then another. Until one rainy afternoon, he stood outside a modest apartment building on the edge of the city. No butler. No security detail. Just him. In the rain. Soaking wet. Heart pounding like he was 20 again. When she opened the door, she didn't speak. Neither did he, not at first. They just stood there, staring. Like everything they both tried to hide was suddenly there, between them. Finally, he broke the silence. "I was wrong to let you go," he said. "No one should have taken the choice away from me. Or from you." She blinked, surprised, hurt still flickering behind her eyes. "I'm not a part of your world, Dominic," she said softly. "I never was." He stepped closer. "Then I guess it's time I stopped living in mine." A beat passed. 2. Then he handed her something. A small white envelope. Unmarked. Inside, a handwritten invitation. To an art exhibit. Downtown. Next Friday. Her name. At the top of the program. "You didn't just play music," he said. "You're music. And people deserve to hear you. Even if I'm the only one in the room who already knows you're the masterpiece." And just like that, he turned to leave. Not to pressure her. Not to buy her back. But to show her she wasn't invisible anymore. And if she walked into that gallery next week, she wouldn't be just a maid. Or a voice behind a closed door. She'd be the moment that changed everything. The gallery was quiet. Not empty. Just waiting. White walls. Soft lighting. A baby grand piano in the corner. And one chair left open. Front row. Dominic stood near the back. Hands in his pockets. Heart louder than the jazz playing through the speakers. He didn't know if she'd come. Didn't expect it. But still. He waited. And then, the door opened. She stepped in. No uniform. No dust on her sleeves. Just Elena. In a simple blue dress. Eyes wide. Heart unsure. But here. He didn't move toward her. Didn't need to. Because she saw him. And smiled. The first real smile he'd ever seen from her. The kind that said, "You found me. And I didn't even know I wanted to be found." The lights dimmed. The room hushed. She walked to the piano. Not as a cleaner. Not as background noise. But as the woman who had once played in secret. Now playing for the world. Her fingers touched the keys. And when the first note rang out, the room disappeared. It was just her. And him. And everything they hadn't said, wrapped in music. Every moment they missed. Every emotion they buried. Every piece of themselves they gave without knowing. Right there. In the sound between each note. He watched her. Not with pride. But with awe. Because she didn't need him to save her. She saved herself. All he did was listen. And finally. See her. And when she looked up. Through the spotlight. Through the music. She saw him too. Not the billionaire. Not the man behind the estate. Just Dominic. And in that unspoken glance. That quiet knowing. The story found its ending. Not in a kiss. Not in a dramatic confession. But in two hearts that had finally stopped hiding. She came as a maid. But left. As the mistress of his heart. What if love doesn't come crashing in with grand fireworks? But sneaks in quietly. Through a door you left cracked open? What if the person you overlooked today is the one who ends up changing everything? Elena didn't ask to be seen. She wasn't chasing fortune or fame. She was just trying to survive. To hold on to the one piece of herself the world hadn't taken away. And Dominic? He wasn't looking for love. He wasn't even sure he believed in it anymore. But sometimes, the right person doesn't need to knock down your walls. They just wait by the door. Until you're ready to let them in. So now we want to know. What would you have done? If you were Elena? If you were Dominic? Would you have taken the risk? opened your heart, even if it meant breaking all the rules? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one. And your stories matter just as much as the ones we tell. If this story touched something in you, tap the like button. It helps more people find these quiet moments, these hidden hearts. And if you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more stories like this. Stories that remind us that love, real love, doesn't care about status, or money, or timing. It just wants to be seen, and heard, and held. Until next time, stay soft, stay curious, and never stop believing in the power of unexpected love.